Thank you for joining us. It's going to be an exciting session. For any of you that were online, who supported us through the alpha and the beta, I want to thank you for all of your support. It's been huge. And what you're going to see today was a contribution from all of you. So again, thank you. All right, let's kick this off. As the CEO and co-founder of Encircle, by the way, my name is Paul Donald. I'm so excited about this opportunity to share with you Encircle AI. This is a whole new path for Encircle, one that we've always envisioned, but now has become a reality. Since 2013, we've been working with restoration contractors, helping them build better documented files in order to streamline their operations, to get paid faster, reduce the friction points between reviewers and adjusters, and so on. And from all of your feedback, we've been doing a good job. We're certainly not perfect, but we're on the right path. And our hearts are with you, the restorer. You know, in today's age, especially with, the weather patterns changing globally, your services are more important than ever. In fact, for properly functioning economies, local economies, we can't do without your services. We need you to be able to respond, to scale up, scale down efficiently, and get paid in full and get paid quickly. I mean, that's just a basic element of running a business. And our concern is that we're helping build very strong, resilient restoration companies across the globe, not just in Canada, not just in the US, but UK, Australia, and beyond. And this Encircle AI represents our opportunity to go one step further. One of the things that we see is that there's still a tremendous amount of administrative overhead in the scoping and estimating process, particularly when estimates are written, 7, 9, 13 days after the job is complete. And then the armchair quarterback sitting in the review or the adjuster side start questioning you on why the estimate was done that way. We want to bring all of that decision point up into day one so that everybody's making decisions in tandem. See, circumstances change in day 2, day 3, and beyond. And hindsight is 2020. So yeah, you could have done something differently, maybe to improve the outcome. But in the moment, when the total chaos is going on, you've got to make the best decisions possible. And when you can involve the adjuster or the reviewer in that process and get their approval up front, it gives you a much stronger leg to stand on. And that's really what we're bringing to the table. We're making that easier with Encircle AI. This tooling will take a tremendous amount of the administrative overhead out of the restoration process, allowing you to focus on the physical elements of the job. And that's what your field teams do. That's what they're good at. That's what they're trained at. Field documentation is tough when you layer it on with a bunch of administrative bottlenecks. But with Scope, with the AI contents, with AI in the video transcript, and so on and so forth that Sean, our product manager, will talk about, we're starting to get rid of that administrative overhead and allow the domain expertise of those field resources that you have to really play a key part in filling out the blank such that you have a fully defensible file. So this Encircle AI is a layer on top of that core foundational platform that all of you have supported us in building over the past 13 years. And this just helps us take the whole experience to a new level. Our commitment is to continue to innovate to make you more successful as a restoration company. That includes internal efficiency, that is communication between your field teams and your office teams for decision support, better work orders, better alignment to the work orders, and then also the decisions that have to be made between the reviewers and the adjusters and how you operate in the field. And then beyond that, how you interact with the policyholder, setting the right expectations up front. AI is a great tool to help us do that, but it doesn't replace any of the skilled attributes that you have as a restorer in physically restoring the structure. That is a unique knowledge that AI is never going to replicate. And so you should be comfortable that you've got the opportunity to not only build a business today, but build a sustainable business for years and decades to come. And we want to be there with you on that journey. So, with that, I'm excited to now introduce Sean Coughlin, our Director of Product Management, as he elaborates on these new AI tools that we're bringing to market. Sean, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate everyone for joining here. This is great. Let me just get set up here. Share my screen. Perfect. All right. Thanks, everyone. And thank everyone here for joining us. We're really excited to finally introduce and kind of get out into the market Encircle AI. Everything Paul just talked about, the friction in this industry, the importance of documentation, the need for tools that actually work the way restoration contractors works. That is what guided us on how we built Encircle AI and all the features that we're going to build on top of it. Our job as a product team isn't just to build AI features and throw them into Encircle. It's what it's always been, is trying to solve the real problems that you face every single day. And the way we approach it was quite simple. As Paul said, our foundation has been in helping you document the job and capturing all the information that has happened in the real world. And now that we have all the information from the real world, we can now layer on these technologies to help turn that data, that information into actions for you and insights for you and make it even more powerful. So you can see here from this diagram, kind of Encircle AI isn't just kind of a chatbot. It's not just one thing. It is these four layers that are interacting together. It starts with kind of our powerful infrastructure that we've been building up over the last 13 years and technology that we continue to grow. And AI is now the new technology that we're adding on top of kind of our product solution. But just adding the technology isn't good enough. Through our architecture, through our engineering, this is where we're able to inject restoration, their specific workflows, the standards that you use every day to help make it accurate. And then we layer on wonderful applications on top of that, whether that's our Encircle Scope or some of the other features that we want to walk you through today and that we've talked about kind of in the past. All of this layering up and to be able to take the data that you collect and provide something extremely useful and value to you no matter when you need it. Now, not all AI is created equal, and we've talked about this many times. Encircle AI is not just an off-the-shelf AI product that you can use. Those kind of generic tools, the public-facing Chat GPTs and Geminis and all that, they serve their purpose, but their primary goal, when we look at it from kind of what our goal is completeness. You ask them a question, and they will confidently answer that question. But they prioritize that completeness over accuracy. You can add in context and everything, but it's really hard to get in the precise context that you want to ensure that you are getting extremely accurate answers every single time versus just complete answers. And that can open up a bunch of liability risks, the data you upload into these kind of generic or public tools, as well as kind of the information that comes back. If they're not accurate, that may be of issue. But at Encircle, we've built kind of this purpose-built solution into that kind of technology stack that I just talked about. It pulls in your data that you own and processes it when you want and routes it through kind of our solution to make sure that it is accurate every single time. And that's really where we focus with each one of these solutions that we've talked about. So what does this mean? Inside your project, as we said, you're already gathering information, and not just with Encircle Scope, but the other tools. Our goal is to save you time, make you more efficient, and allow you to focus on the things that you need to do. And we believe by saving you time and with the introduction of these features, we can help drive more revenue, whether that's, again, saving cost in the field because we can do things a lot quicker, saving time analyzing a file, so getting to that scope of work and perhaps highlighting areas that may have been missed normally during a manual scoping process, which could drive more revenue. And if we're driving you more revenue and saving you time, we hope we can open up more capacity for you to take on more jobs and be more successful, like Paul talked about. So now let's go through some of the features that we want to show off that is powered by Encircle AI. So one of the first things that we're coming out with in addition to Scope is leveraging kind of these technology tools to make capturing readings in Hydro significantly more faster. So this is something that's coming out in early April. So with one click of a button, you're already taking a photo of whether it's your psychometric reading or a material reading, and then manually entering in the data. Well, this technology can do that data entry for you. So it's still important to capture the photo of that reading, so you have that justification that you were there on site and this was the actual reading and you're documenting that drying process. But using OCR, which is optical character recognition, a technology that allows us to extract information from photos, we're going to populate that data for you. And let me show you what that looks like. So in this sample that we have here, we're going to take an unaffected air reading and an affected air reading. The normal flow that you do today, so you don't need to change what you've done, but you now go from, rather than entering in that data, snap the photo like you always did, we populate it almost instantly. And now you can move on to the next thing. Now you go into your affected area, the ensuite that had the burst pipe in the sink, do the same thing. Take the photo, the lighting can change, we can still extract that information and really, really quick. So if you're on jobs with hundreds of moisture points and multiple readings over many days, we're going to save you time in that data entry. Now, another thing that captures a lot of information but can get locked into it are videos. And we think videos are a wonderful way, and a lot of our customers already use it today to describe the loss. You can capture it walking the floor, taking a video, narrating everything you're seeing. But today, a lot of that information is kind of locked up in that video. And there's not an easy way to kind of figure out what was said without having to watch the full thing. But now with Encircle Summarization, you're able to capture that video. We will then generate a transcript, create a summary that's formatted based on that review in your voice that you did for that full video. And then from there, you can produce that into a note. This will really save time. This is coming out kind of mid-April. Now let me show you what that looks like in action. So in this example, we've uploaded a video to the file, or we've already taken the video in the file. So you just open up the video. There's going to be a new button, Summarize. You hit it, select the output language. So you can have this in English, French, Spanish, your videos. We can understand the language that was spoken in that video. So if you have teams that, English isn't their native language, that's okay. Let them record it. And then we'll start processing it when you want it to be processed. And as you can see right away, as soon as we start processing it, we generate that transcript. From there, we take this transcript, send it up into Encircle AI, and now start processing it and producing that summary. And once it's done, you'll be able to see the kind of the icon change here in a second that the processing is done. We now have a summary of that video. You open it up, you can look at that summary, beautifully formatted, breaking down how you spoke in that video into really relevant information that is restoration specific. And then with, a touch of a button, you can now add that as a general note. And all of a sudden, from this one video that you took maybe 2 minutes of walking through the video, you have the transcription, you now have a note on your file that you can then use to provide your team what they need to do, as well as, share that with external counsel. So really helping you speed up that process. Another area, and one of the original areas that Encircle worked on, was contents. So we've been supporting contents for a long time, pack out and inventory, and a lot of our customers really like it. And now we're going to drive the efficiency of that, similar to the Hydro readings where we automatically do that. With Encircle AI, when you take a photo, we'll create the description for you. We'll be able to add in the brand if it's obvious. We'll be able to add in the quantity of the number of things that you've just taken in that photo. So if you have mugs, really driving significant amount of efficiency in the contents workflow. We know that when talking from our customers, when you're packing out and using the current flow, when you snap a photo and you enter in the description, it can be like 1 to 3 minutes of time to fill in the item description before you can move on to the next one. But what I'll show you kind of in the next video dramatically reduces that down. So here you can see in this video, we already have a bunch of items in this file, but there's more content that we need to track. So here we quickly snap here's this custom plate that's out there. You can see, within seconds, we described the answer or described the item right there. Now, think about how quick this is going to be when you have, a whole bunch of other items. You quickly just snap a photo, verify that's what you want, move on to the next item. You just keep doing that and repeating, take an item, pack it, take a photo of another item, pack that out. And by the time you're done packing that last item for the box and you go back to this list, all of those items already have their description. Let me just pause this here. So this is 3 mugs. So if you're taking kind of bulk pictures of a certain thing, we've identified 3 mugs, assorted colors, and we've identified the quantity. So filling in those fields within Encircle already so you don't have to. The same thing with Tylenol. You can see here, Tylenol, we filled in the brand section. We filled in the quantity that we're able to see in that photo. So this is dramatically going to speed up the pack out process and make your teams even more efficient in the field. And this is really what Encircle wants to do with our AI tools, not just add them for the sake of adding them, but drive real efficiency in your workflows today. And then the last thing, which, as Paul said, want a huge shout out and thank you to everyone that's been part of our alpha and beta testing on Encircle Scope. But we feel this is one of the biggest transformational things that we've done, and it's kind of been Paul's vision of where we want to take Encircle going forward. You're already capturing all this data, all this information in Encircle, leveraging AI, leveraging our experience and the workflows that we're able to build into Encircle AI. We can interpret all that information. We can identify the relevant line items. We generate this scope in minutes. So at the end of day one, within minutes, you now have a scope that is 80, 90% accurate based on the information that you put into it. Now, let's see what that looks like. I think a lot of people have already seen Encircle Scope before. So here's a sample file that you can see. We have general note that describes the job loss. We have a floor plan. We have rooms with photos and with that same video that's in there. And Scope will take the transcript and the note as well that you saw from video summarization and leverage to create that scope. And when we generate that into a scope, you can see here that, again, within minutes, we're providing you information of what happened on the job loss. What was the timeline that we saw? How long from when the loss occurred to when you were able to show up on site? What's the basics of the information? What's a great narrative to describe what happened and how did the water mitigate or migrate throughout the job? And then from there, creating line items that mirror what you would need to put into your scope, whether that's Xactimate or another tool. Leveraging languages. And when there's floor plan information and when we have dimensions, we're able to provide you the quantities that would line up with those different tasks. And each of these rooms that we identify from that scope, we call out and produce kind of these task lists that are unique and specific to that specific room based on the information that we've pulled out from the photos, from the videos, from the notes that you've added in there. Really speeding up the process, turning your team from kind of authors of having to kind of research and figure out what's happened on a scope into editors. And then they can take this information, use it in their estimate, hand that off to their estimator team, but also use this to instruct their field teams what they need to do. So thank you very much for letting me walk you through our different features. Up next now, I'm going to actually hand it back to Paul. We're going to have a wonderful chat with Paul and kind of our principal AI architect, Joe Ledbetter. Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Sean. That was a great overview. Well, I'm excited to be here with Joe Ledbetter. And for everybody out there, it was 2 years ago that Joe and my visions all aligned. And a little background on Joe. Joe is an experienced restoration contractor who got passionate about AI and applied his deep knowledge of restoration and his quick up to speed understanding of AI to become an AI expert on restoration as it's applied to restoration. That's really how we've gotten to this point. Joe working with Ronick, my co-founder, and the rest of Sean's teams to bring all of this to reality. So really great path forward. As Leah said, I'm excited. I know you put in a tremendous amount of hours and thought into this. Your excitement must be off the charts.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see it get launched today. It's a little surreal to be honest.
I bet. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the start. So let me ask you a question. Why was it important to start with mitigation scope, and particularly mitigation scope on day one?
Yeah, I mean, great question. And it comes down to the word scope. Like our industry, we've never had an actual scope, like in traditional businesses. So the goal was to be able to communicate the loss, the damages, work needed to be done, do it immediately when we get on site. Unlike, traditionally we produce this thing called an estimate after the work is done,
Yep.
and that doesn't really work for the way business runs. And so we wanted to develop something that you could do immediately right when you walk in the door to communicate the actual loss, what needs to happen, and do it with a lot of specific intent.
Absolutely. That's great. And now you quiet all the armchair quarterbacks who necessarily weren't there with you on day one when the chaos was happening.
Yeah.
So, what about day two and day three? Why do people using our scope need to run them on day two and day three?
Sure. I mean, running on day two just gives you another perspective of what's been going on the project, right? Remember, we're building these scopes off of your data. So therefore, it's a good way to do it on day two. But day three is where it kind of starts to get more magical, right? And I refer to day three, but it's really towards the wrapping up of the project. Whatever the last day of the job is, that's when your estimator gets his hand on the scope and says, okay, we're going to make this thing an estimate right now. And that's really where the magic just starts to come together, right? So they're able to run the scope on the end of the project, which now you have all of your information, all the photos, all your moisture readings, all of your information. And now what gets produced on day three or at the end of the job
Mhm.
is this thing that your estimator will proudly put into Xactimate or the estimating software.
Absolutely. And so there's no limit to how many times you can run the scope. Make sure you're running it to get it correct. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Let me start off by saying, um, what have you seen customers doing that excites you with Encircle Scope? Like, what has it trained or what has it led our customers to do that's exciting?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I think that it's actually doing is it's teaching our users to add more information to their claims. Like simply put, we're watching the user behaviors now adding 20 to 30, even 40% more photos, more notes, because there's a direct correlation to what the AI is going to give them. And
Yep.
that's an amazing thing because as a restorer, the only thing we'd always ever ask our technicians is please take more photos, make more notes, please. Like we
Yep.
beg them, and it still never happened.
Yep.
That issue's gone.
I love it. And now, how does it, like, instead of this being a friction point, how does it become almost a gamification for their PMs in the field and their
Yeah,
techs in the
it's
field?
true gamification. So in the scope report, you'll all see at the bottom is a section called data quality. That's claim readiness. That's a master restore on the shoulder of your technician, tapping them and saying, "Hey, John, I think you need a few more photos. I think you need some more notes." And when you've produced a phenomenal scope, when there's no data quality issues at the bottom of the scope.
Yeah. And so I'm sure all of our customers and prospects out there watching this webinar right now are wondering, okay, what's the fastest way for me to test this? I want to see if Joe is telling me the truth here.
Yeah.
So, what's the fastest way for them to just give it a run?
Absolutely. And this is what I would encourage every first time user to do exactly this so that you can really appreciate what we've built for you. You want to open up the app, create a new claim. Don't worry about creating rooms. Don't worry about adding photos. Don't worry about adding notes or anything like that or moisture information. All I want you to do is open up, create a new claim, and then create a general note. And in that general note, I just want you to talk to the damages. We call it a damage description, right? So just role play a three-room loss and just explain it to the best of your ability, regardless of your skill set. And then hit generate scope. So no photos, no rooms created, nothing specific, just a damage description describing the damages of the actual loss, the source, the rooms, the materials, whatever you see fit, and then generate scope.
Yeah.
That is a surefire way for you to see the capabilities of our tooling.
Now, that doesn't build a defensible file. That's just for you to test. Talk to me about now building the defensible file because, that's just a test. Remember,
Right. So what you want to do is when you get on site day one, you want to run this test that we just described so that everyone now in your organization, the carriers, everyone understands what the scope of work actually is. Keyword, the scope of work, not a price, not an estimate, what needs to be done. But now over the next 3 days, 4 days, you and your team are going to add information to the file, more pictures, moisture readings, more notes, so on and so forth. And now what happens is when you go to run that scope on the end of the project, you end up building a defensible file because the tooling is going to utilize your data and then it's going to tell you if you're still missing photos or missing information. And it's that missing information that creates this major friction when you finally submit your final paperwork to the carrier. Because the carrier, and by the way, they're using AI tools too.
Yep.
Another webinar we can
Yep.
get into there, but you don't want to be red flagged. Right. And so many of us get red flagged when our estimates and our documents go in because we're missing data. This eliminates that issue.
That's exciting. And talk about the consistency of data gathering because most of these contractors deal with, some of their employees are good at documenting, others are not.
Yeah.
Have we seen more of a bent towards continuity across their teams?
Massive shift. So we all have those employees, right? The top performers, the kind of in the middle, maybe a little bit on the lower side, and we're always struggling to get them to do the same things. What we're seeing in the back end, very specifically, is almost all claims are getting 20 to 30 and sometimes even 40% more photos, more notes, more information that just builds that defensible file. And nobody was out there with a list saying, don't forget to take these 5 photos. Don't forget to make these notes.
Yeah,
See, that's the difference.
absolutely. Now, what is the one thing these folks don't want to do when on the first test of Encircle?
Oh, yeah, we see this all the time. And so it's not that you don't want to do it, but you just won't be happy with the results. And we understand why people do it. And so here's what we see a lot of users doing. They'll go to a file that's got a lot of data, right? Lots of pictures, lots of notes, because everybody understands like what you put in, kind of what you get out. And the challenge with that is they often go back in history, a year, maybe 2 years,
Yeah.
and they go to run the scope on a file then, and the output doesn't really work. And here's why it doesn't really work that well. Because in order to build a proper scope, it's all based on a timeline. So therefore, if you go back in history to the timeline where all your data is meta tagged with dates and times, etc., it creates an issue trying to understand what the current actual timeline is so that we can figure out the category and the class and all of these other variables that are predicated in order to figure out a scope.
Yeah. So note to self, don't test it on an old file. Do what Joe said, create a general note and describe the loss, and then take it out on a new job and put it through its paces. You will be impressed. So moving forward, this is an amazing transition point in Encircle's history. What problems do you foresee this platform solving as we go forward? I mean, Sean talked about a few other tools, all of that you've been working on, but where do we go from here?
Yeah, and so we do have a lot of great, awesome AI powered tools hitting everybody this month, right, for all of our users. But the real unlock was the scope, right? So once we now have established a solid scope that's defensible, that becomes so many more things. Like a great example is we can now turn it into work orders for your staff. We can press a button and push it into your estimating software. We can produce a reconstruction scope. Like these are all amazing, powerful tools that are coming now for all the restorers on our platform. They're coming really quick.
Yeah, this is going to be a quick iteration. Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure working with you over the past couple of years, and I look forward to many more to come as we serve our customers. So with that, let's actually hear from a real customer who's helped us throughout the alpha and beta process.
All right, thanks. Sandy, get you to turn you on. There you are. Thanks, Sandy, for joining us. Thanks, everyone. Now we have our special guest here, Sandy Rehaume. She's a product manager with Winmar Kelowna. She's been a really key partner in helping us build the Encircle Scope tool. She was one of our first users to try it last year. And I think we can't wait to get her to share her experience. And she's been working with, in the field for decades and her valuable feedback. And now myself and Leah, who's our director of product content and marketing, We're going to spend a few minutes kind of asking Sandy some questions. So first off, Sandy, how are you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. I am doing well today. Thank you.
I'm
Still
glad to
not
hear it.
with a camera, but I'm here.
Oh, you're doing wonderful. So let's dive right into it. So in some of our earlier conversations that we've had over the last few kind of weeks and months, you mentioned you ran our scope tool kind of several points throughout some of your jobs, whether that's from the initial walkthrough kind of to a final scope. Can you talk us through why you did that and kind of what you saw during that process?
Well, the why was more or less just to see what this product can do for me. This was testing it to see how your platform can make my job simpler, more efficient, and easier to manage. So that was why I did it the way I did it. I started right at the beginning after the technicians had left the job site the first time. I had done my walkthrough, they did their work. I ran a scope, and the scope produced a product that allowed me to review our data quality. Did we get the information we needed? Did the technician hit all of the points that I asked for? And am I able to produce a quality initial site report out of that first run? The project narrative was edit ready, and it helped me to produce an initial site report that would have taken me a lot longer to type out myself. All I did was changed a bit of the sentencing structure and things to more match who I am. But other than that, there was really very little edits that I needed.
That's great. So you kind of did that at the beginning. You kind of get that, and I think a word you used to us a while ago was it gave you this temperature check, kind of your job, like you said, what's happening on the job, and have we documented the things that you kind of as the project manager expect to be documented. Now, when you ran it partway through that job rather than at the very end, what benefits did you get out of that at that point from the scope?
Oh, in that one, it told me where my data wasn't making sense. That review at the very end, where it questioned whether or not the technician actually moved any equipment from one location to another because it looked like it was in the same spot the whole time. And that helped me build an argument for using that amount of equipment. If we had this piece of equipment on this wall for a day and then the drying was working, so we moved that same piece of equipment to a new location where it wasn't drying as quickly, it was captured in the data. The notes were there to back it up, the photos were there to back it up, and what it helped me to produce was a good argument for what it was that we were going to be billing for. And it also helped me to identify areas where we needed to make the changes before it was at the end. Doing it in the middle of the project when you've got some time and to request those equipment efficiencies from the back end, so our technicians can go in and they can change their documentation so that it makes sense for our documentation moving forward. Hope that made sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think again, giving you maybe that another temperature check in the job, the expectations that you have of the field term versus the reality of what happened in the field, kind of that, second scope partway through kind of really helped highlight kind of where else you need to focus the team. So then at the end of the job, when you have to do kind of, I'll say, is it the messy work of creating an estimate and kind of getting that priced out? How did the scope then help you at that point after you've had these two kind of temperature checks and kind of said, okay, we have some data, we need a bit more information or not the right information. Like what was that final kind of process like for you?
The final actually made it simpler and again, more efficient with my time. So basically reviewing that final scope, I was able to identify any areas that I would need to defend. If I'm going to put this information into Xactimate and somebody's going to ask me why, the IICRC standards were already noted. So really all I had to do was copy and paste that note into the notes in Xactimate, and it made sense right away. There was likely no need for question.
Nice. So it really helped kind of validate there. And I think you also said you use kind of, I think, Exact Expert as well, that helped you kind of do a review, and it seemed to pass with fairly flying colors.
So much quicker.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sean, if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump in and ask
Go right ahead, yeah.
Sandy some questions. Sandy, it's good to see you again. So Sean just mentioned that your estimate passed expert review, Xactimate expert review with flying colors without needing any rework. How significant is that to you in terms of whether it's time savings or, you know, less stress or headaches? What does that mean to you to keeping the project moving forward?
Well, all of the above of what you said. Any project manager can tell you that you cannot just sit down and write your scope. You cannot just sit down and create your estimate. There's phone calls, emails, things coming in and interrupting you throughout that process. The beauty that I found from the final scope that I pulled is that it was all there, and all I had to do is go through room by room and check to make sure, do I have this line item in here? Have I entered my reasoning for putting this line item in here? Have I provided the best narrative for the reviewer to understand, to get quicker through this? So in doing that, when I do the review before the final document, I found that I had less than half of the amount of questions from that Xactspert review. So less than half, and in some cases it was just how many rooms wasn't filled out. Very simple fix.
Okay. And how would that compare to a job where you didn't use our scope tool? Can you compare sort of a before and after what things look like without it?
So being that I am still trying to keep up with technology as it changes so much, this just cut through all of that. I didn't need to go back and double check things. I didn't have to go back and review things. I basically had an assistant saying, hey, did you miss this? Did you catch this? And rather than getting frustrated and stressed out because now I need to go and find it, oh no, it's there. It's right here. Did you remember to put this in? And that made it just, I guess, I'm now dependent on your AI.
So it's like a little technology safety net for you to remember and just remind things that you might otherwise miss. I mean, we all have busy days or bad days and things like that.
Absolutely. And again, technology is changing all the time, and the AI is keeping up with those changes far faster than I can.
What would you say to everyone now that you know that everybody has access to it? I mean, you've been experiencing it for a few months now. So what would you say to the folks who are online today?
I would say if you're hesitant, reluctant, or afraid, don't be. It's really super easy to use. If you're skeptical, that'll change, I promise. And the more you use it, the better you get at using it, and the better the results will be.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I think I've learned from you as well as from your team that you guys have called out is it really helps you learn how to be better and document better because it needs the data to go in, and it's that nice feedback loop or reminder to get that documentation in. Sean, any final questions for Sandy before we head into the Q&A portion of our day?
No, I think we're good. Sandy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being a participant the last couple of months and, you know, getting over maybe your camera shyness and joining us on the webinar. It's been wonderful having you. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to at this stage we're going to bring Paul back to the webinar. I'm just going to share my screen, and we're going to answer some questions that have come in. And I just want to take a moment to thank my army of Encircle experts who are behind the scenes answering questions. I know that they've already answered about 85 questions. In the Q&A box, there's a few that are still open, and then I'm going to answer a few of them. We're going to get the answers to a few of them live today. So thanks to the team that's behind the scenes answering all those questions. There's Paul, Sean, there's clearly a lot of enthusiasm and excitement and questions and things around our AI features. It's really great to see. Another question that's been coming through a lot today is around Xactimate, and when will the line items that are shown in the scope reflect Xactimate pricing or T&M pricing or custom price lists?
Yeah, so in our Encircle Scope, we've strategically, I'll use the term, and consciously worded the tasks in kind of the project level and each room with kind of the nomenclature. Again, we're industry specific that are used in estimates. So the line items that we see and the tasks that you see in the Encircle Scope align very closely to the exact wording that you would see, say, in Xactimate. Now, I know another question I think that everyone has been asking is, does this go into Xactimate directly? So at this time, no. Right now, we've really focused on, as Paul and Joe talked about, really taking the information on the job and consolidating that into kind of this really strong formalized scope of work that can then be used for downstream workflows, like creating an estimate or telling your team what to do. Well, as we've talked about in the past, our next steps are to be able to translate that and go into Xactimate. We don't have timings yet, but that's kind of the next major project that our team is working on. Paul, I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add kind of on top of that.
Yeah, our goal is to streamline the whole input straight into Exact, and we don't plan on stopping there. We will eventually support T&M, custom price lists, and beyond. This is an agnostic tool that takes away the complexity of working in multiple systems. So over time, but in software development timeframes, it'll be happening quickly. For customers who are dire need, it'll feel like a little bit of a wait, but trust us, we'll get there. And the baseline is the scope. All of that information then informs our ability to populate into the other systems.
Great, thanks, Paul. Speaking of the scope, a number of times has come up around the use case of this particular scope that we're launching today, this being a mitigation scope, and lots of questions around will it work for contents jobs? Will it work for rebuild, reconstruction jobs? Will it work for asbestos or lead projects? Sean, do you have an answer to that question?
Yeah, we've really focused, and we talked about this at one of our previous webinars. This one is really dedicated and kind of fine-tuned for the mitigation workflow, but that's not just water mitigation. While we reference the S500, we also reference the S700 for fire jobs, the S520 for mold jobs. So we're going to cover any mitigation job that you cover. In terms of like lead and asbestos, we do have the knowledge and understanding of kind of EPA and OSHA, and we'll take into consideration and provide verbiage that if we see asbestos or it's noted or lead is noted in the file, we will provide commentary and line items dedicated to those specific things based on those other regulations that we have. So, which is really dedicated kind of on that mitigation. We have future plans of being able to extend this to creating a dedicated content scope and then a dedicated kind of rebuild, reconstruction scope, but for now we've really focused on that mitigation workflow and mitigation scope.
Great, thank you. One of the questions that came up early on, Sean, I think it was when you were talking to Encircle AI and the different layers and the sort of architecture that we built for AI. What AI models is Encircle using in Scope and in our other tools?
Yeah, so kind of in there's not just one tool. Let me put it that way. If we look at that diagram, kind of that layers that we talked about, that technology layer of AI is not simply just an LLM. We do leverage an LLM, and at this time we are leveraging ChatGPT, but we're constantly evaluating the different models that are out there to ensure that we're going to use the best technology. And when we leverage kind of the ChatGPT and the GPTs that are out there, It is to funnel the information that has kind of gone through our technology stack to generate that text. But we also have image recognition services. We have video analysis services, video transcription services, translation services. All of those are part of our tech stack. All those leveraging different styles of AI to help produce kind of the end scope, which is written with an LLM, but many technologies get fed into there. We have many gates and checks within the system to ensure that as the data flows through, it's always accurate, always be able to be validated against the information from the claim, and then produce kind of that final scope in that document.
Great,
Yeah, I
thank you.
think it's also important, Sean, to note that this is a secure sandbox version that we're building in. This is not your general public LLM ChatGPT.
That's right. Yeah. And we add a layer of security, data integrity, data encryption on top of everything. So nothing is getting outside of our system. Great point, Paul.
Yeah, I think that leads really nicely, Paul. I might throw the next question over to you because I think it's related. Somebody asked why can't they just take Encircle data, or why can't they just use ChatGPT on its own, like their own instance of ChatGPT or another AI tool to create a scope? I'll throw that over to
Great
you, Paul, and
question.
then maybe to Sean.
Yeah, great question. Well, one of the biggest problems with general LLMs is hallucinations. It's dealing with a vast library of data and making a lot of assumptions. Like, for example, assumptions on ICRC recommendations. You don't want an LLM interpreting what the ICRC has spent years and years building out these requirements. Those are static, those can't change. And so, how the data is applied against the LLM requires a lot of upfront work to understand that data and then put it in through a large language model to get a consistent result without hallucinations. And I don't know, Sean, maybe you can describe it in a simple way, but at the end of the day, it's all about data accuracy and trustworthy outputs that allow you to stand behind the information you're submitting to the carrier, so you can trust it and you can rely upon it to serve your needs.
Yeah, I think the way our technology looks at it is, again, this is a multi-step process. This isn't just one giant prompt that we're throwing into an LLM kind of behind the scenes in our technology. We look at every single photo that gets ingested into the scope, break each of those photos down into a set of information. Does this look like a kitchen? Are there cabinets? What's the floor type? Do we identify damage within those photos? Then we take all the data from the notes and interpolate that and try to understand the context of what those notes are. And then we match those up. And by matching that up, we get to that level of accuracy. So we're not hallucinating that, oh, the carpet was wet. We validate it in multi-point step ways. And then at the very end, produce kind of this text document that does it. So highly accurate. We're really focused on that accuracy to ensure that the data that you put in the job, we're interpreting it and putting that out into the scope versus just trying to complete a scope for the sake of completing a scope, if that's what you ask kind of a general system to do.
I think I'm going to jump in with my own perspective too. Is I think one of the important things is if you're just using your instance of ChatGPT, you have to get the data out from a system and into ChatGPT. And one of the great things about Encircle is that it's all contained in one system and you never have to leave it. So it's really streamlining that process as well. So everything's contained, and like Sean mentioned before, it's all contained within a secure Encircle environment. Your data never leaves the Encircle. We're never sending any of your customer data or your data to an LLM. It's all contained in our private secure environment, so it's secure and safe and SOC 2 compliant. So I think that's important to mention as well. Paul, I'm going to pass it over to you to wrap up for us here.
All right. Well, let me thank everybody. There's so many of you out there that have been supporting us. Thank you for the support you've given us. Thank you for joining this webinar. And thank you for testing Encircle, putting us through its paces. And like Joe and I talked about, it's so important that you're giving us feedback. If there's something we've missed or something you would like to see, the iteration process on this is going to be quick. So that feedback can be applied into our AI models fairly quickly. Of course, Sean, he's going to kill me for saying that, but Sean's a superstar. He'll make it happen if you request it. So AI, Encircle's version of AI is going to help you work a lot smarter. Think of it as adding some really good professional resources to your staff at a very, very low cost. And that professional resource is going to continue to get better at not only understanding your business, but continuing to generate more value and taking away administrative overhead and friction across the ecosystem. It'll help your teams document better in the field, as Joe and I talked about. So the gamification of creating the perfect scope in the field allows you to create a perfect estimate in the office. Completely relevant and applicable to both. Recovering revenue. So many restorers are getting dinged with scrubbed invoices. We need you to be given that justification for the work you're doing right up front so everybody's on the same page. We need you to be profitable and scalable to be able to help with the weather patterns we're seeing across the globe. And again, we want you to scale with confidence. At the end of the day, without you in our communities, we just can't recover when bad things happen. So thank you for all you do. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your time, and I look forward to working with you for many years to come.